Something all of you have in common is content creation. While your individual roles in content creation are different, whether that's branding, designing, writing, casting, styling, modeling, art direction, photography, or producing, all of you contribute to the story. To quote our very own Sabaa Quao, who, along with many other marketers, has said this: content is king. And so my final question is, with an industry more willing to embrace Black creative skills, talent, and leadership, what content do you want to make and see? And what content do you never want to see again?
The one-off stories or, the all Black issues. I think those are great. They're celebratory. I love those, but, they're so far in between of each other. One thing that's really boggled my mind for many years, the lack of stories about textured hair, curly hair. You rarely when I'm doing my research to write about something like that, rarely am I seeking that from a Canadian source. It's, we see it a lot in the States because they have the Black publications, but I feel like, there needs to be more outlets dedicating the time that's key and the space to talking about textured hair. There's just so much to unpack there. And something that I really, really wanted to bring to fashion when I started. So I started a weekly column called Texture Talk every Thursday. And it's just packing the dynamic world of curly hair. I mean, you look at the Canadian population and, with all the mixed race families growing now, there's so many people who have a different hair texture than just straight. So, where are they getting their information? Where are they seeing themselves reflected? There's so many great hair tips to share. There's so many, what I love about beauty is it's so personal, and curly hair is so personal, textured hair is so personal. And usually you can unpack a lot there about somebody's culture and identity. And again, that needs to be something that's regularly told. So something at Fashion I've really made my mission to do. And then other things too is when it comes to content created by BIPOC voices, Black and Indigenous specifically, I want to see more content where it's not just when those type of writers are hired, those types of voices are hired. It's not just race-based content. It's not just content based on a struggle or what have you, that, we are celebrating these voices, we're celebrating their talent, that their writing experience, their voice, and that they can write about anything, really, because at the end of the day, they are talented, they worked hard to be where they are, to pursue the careers they have pursued. So I just want to be able to read a story, and if I Google that author, be like, wow, that's a talented voice of color. And the story I read wasn't just based on their lived experience of a struggle or something related to just their background. So yeah, just more content, more vast content from writers of color.
Before at the inception of all of this narrative or talk about Black Lives Matter, what was interesting is that I had phone calls from all the modeling agencies. I had calls from colleagues that I've known for years and years and years, and we've never had this dialogue before. But part of what everyone wanted to know was, how is it as a hair and makeup agency, myself and my colleagues at Page One and Platino could better facilitate our artists being able to be more inclusive behind the scenes there on set. So that conversation is happening, as Celia has also mentioned. I think, Celia, you're a little bit ahead of us on that, but that conversation is happening now amongst our community, and trying to make sure that anyone that is behind the scenes working, whether you're Black, Indigenous, green, purple, whatever your color hair is, they have the skill set to do it. The responsibility is on us as agents, okay, to make sure that we're putting the right people in those jobs. Content, yeah, I mean, content is king. What we choose to view and consume, it impacts us unconsciously a lot of times. I find that I was looking through a magazine the other day, and I was noting that every 5th or 6th page, there was some content with either a Black model or a Black article and what have you. Sure, I get it's now, and there's a consciousness about what we're going to be putting in a magazine, what we want to appeal to people and what people are going to read. But I also think, just to keep talking about it, and I mean, I like to dream with my eyes open. there'll be a time when we won't be having this conversation, and we'll just be going, hey, you know what? Love her, love him. Yeah, the hair's going to be challenging. Let's get someone who can do that hair and do that. And then we take the best people, we put them in the best position to be successful. It's a totality of all our efforts, not just the individual pieces.
What content do I want to make? I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing, which is putting Black people in positive light. I think that if I only photographed Black people, I don't think that anyone would know my name. I think that for me, one thing that's important for Black people, and any Black person that's out there that's a household name, Beyonce, Jay-Z, they have something called crossover ability. And for me, that's the thing that I've always realized that was super important, is that I have to be liked and appreciated by all people. And the more focused I am just on like, hey, I got to be super cool with my own demo, it's going to hurt me on a everything. When I started to shoot too many rappers, I knew that when people heard my name, there was like, oh yeah, that photographer who shoots hip hop. Well, I knew I had to start shooting Colin Firth and Michael Sheen and working on crossover appeal, because for us people who are visible minorities that are trying to be a household name, we have to have crossover appeal. I don't want to be filtered visually, so it's impossible for me to try to filter other people what they do visually. But what I can do is control what I see. And what I control currently is I don't look at anything that's glorified violence. I don't look at anything that's blood. I don't look at anything that causes my own self to jump into a flight or fight situation. I'm all about positive and putting out the positive. And in order for me to do that, although it kind of makes me slightly biased toward the positive, I really try to filter my eyes from things that put me in flight or fight mode, because I feel like for our own sanity and health, we've lived in flight or fight mode for 500 years. So it's time for us to kind of get into that point where we feel calm and we feel blessed and we feel thankful and we feel gratitude, and we fill our eyes with love and light, and we shield our eyes from fear and violence.
What I would like to see is more content that assumes the intelligence of the audience. We don't have to explain everything. Let's just let people figure some of it out. If it's challenging, that's great. And I want to see content that isn't entirely focused on suffering and toil. You know, like we've touched on this already, like you hire, let's hire a Black writer to write about, you know, the agony that they endured, or let's make another movie about slavery. Like, let's just do it. You know, why can't we have stories about Black joy? Why can't we just have stories about the minutia of life? And actually, for me, I feel like that is where the biggest connections come, where you realize we're all the same in many, many ways. But if we hear the story about someone's family gathering or this or that, the specific can be the global. So I'd like to see that. And I'd also like to see an increase in talent that is behind the scenes, that is of color. You know, right now we all are seeing the September issues drop, and it's just like, there's a sea of melanin out there, and that's bomb. But I'm like, we went through this in 2018 when there was this, by luck of the draw, we all had Black women on our covers, and there was a whole big conversation piece around it, and then it went back to normal. So I want to see behind the scenes, because when you're behind the scenes, you are not just looking at the face of something, you're also looking at the decision makers, the content style, the conversations, the understanding of the true way to have a conversation that is inclusive and diverse. So I want to see an increase in talent behind the scenes so that more things can happen in front of the scenes. And as for what I don't want to see any more of, I don't want to see colorism in model choices. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of the standard that is just like light-skinned is the right skin. I'm tired of that. I don't know why that is still prevalent within our community and externally, obviously, really, really badly externally. Yeah, so talent behind the scenes, let's stop tokenism, please and thank you. And let's just have some beautiful, fun, joyous things created around our culture.
You're right, Vanessa. We need to see different images of Black beauty. It's not all the approved, images. And I don't want to get too political into it, but you know what I mean? There's a certain look that gets over, and then there are others that are pushing it too much. Needs to open up for everything. And you're right, life matters, right? Everybody's life matters. Animal life matters. The planet life, the environment life matters, right? So I would like to see messages that really address. I would like to see images where I don't even think about it anymore, quite frankly, where there is just such a rainbow of, it can also be handicapped people and various other marginalized. It's the marginalization of people now that need to be brought in and given their just right to exist and participate and be reflected back in the society. That's what I would really like to have. And yeah, I don't want to be just a trend or a fetish. There's more to us than that.
Just riffing on Vanessa's point about wanting to see good experiences, I thought it was just bravo, bravo, bravo to Dior for their last menswear show. Kim Jones had met an African artist, I think his name is Omoko Boafo, and he saw him at Art Basel. They met, maybe it was prearranged, but he was touched by the work. And he went all the way to Accra for them to collaborate, to see how Kim Jones could bring that work to life. There was no patronization, there was no anything, it was just beautiful art. And it wasn't another show about African influence, which has been done about 400 times. This was like a real show, and with these men wearing these beautiful textures and motion, that a big brand has made a financial decision to stand behind the creative director, to put the brand on all Black men. I thought it was a really wonderful experience. It would be great for those things to happen periodically, right? I think it's gorgeous. So it comes back to the corporations, and I think that Bay Street and many other financial streets are all hyper masculine. It's a bastion for white men, and I think that there's work that's happening. West Hall and the other people are trying to get work to make more representation on those levels happen. So the decision makers allowing creative people to just be creative, and more of that happening, I think is something I would love to see.
As far as creative content, for that content to just be creative. Forget about the fact that not as a Black person who is creative, not being expected to check certain boxes, to just have the ability, it's so much pressure to have to check those boxes. You should just have the ability to be creative. There shouldn't have to be they're urban, okay, check. Oh, that's a political statement, okay, that's check. Okay, that's gonna tell some story of a struggle through, where you rose up, okay, that's check. But, you know what I mean? Where's the story that's just about joy? Where's the creativity that's just creative? It's not making some political statement. Where is you know what I mean? Like all of that stuff. Like for me, content wise, I just want to see something that's beautiful. And that as a Black creative person, I don't want to feel that I have to check all of these things for the person in power who might not be my ethnicity, but feels that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. What I'm supposed to do is create. Anything beyond that, yeah, you shouldn't have to do it.
What I want to see is content that reimagines the world the way we want to see it. And we create visual communication. We have a lot of power to do that. But I'll reference Vanessa's point about behind the scenes, and let's go all the way to the back and say, we also need to be the ultimate decision makers. That means we need more entrepreneurs who make the ultimate decision before anything else goes forward. You have to be able to make the decisions where the disruption takes place. And that means media ownership, design ownership, technology ownership, finance, healthcare. People making those decisions from a Black point of view, from an Indigenous point of view, from a person of color's point of view, from a woman's point of view, is ultimately going to make the biggest change because it's coming from the top down. There's a lot of ground up activity, but ultimately someone has to be at the top of the food chain, and it's hard. I'm not going to put a gloss on entrepreneurship because it's one of the hardest things you could possibly do, and there will be a lot of failure. But unless we have enough people at the top of the food chain, we're not going to be able to have enough control.
Earlier on, we were speaking about, our own creative identity. And what I would like to see is more creative content from all of the wonderful people that are actually on this panel. Let's start at home. Let's start buying Elle Canada. Let's start buying Flair. Let's start supporting local. Let's start buying Lana Ogilvie's products. Let's start buying George Sully's shoes. Let's start supporting our own. It's all lovely and airy-fairy, but at the end of the day, what can you do? What can I do? What can we do? We can support each other. And whatever content creation decisions any of you make, I will support you. That's what we can say, and that's what we can do.
So let's start buying my new shoe for the kids. That was awesome. And you know what? Absolutely. Because we're in this world of just social media, and really there's so many options, and you can turn off and turn on. So it's kind of like, find what you like, enjoy what you enjoy. I know for myself, if I'm responsible for me, then I know my demo. I know the vast, and again, I have a few brands, men's, women's, unisex. So it's one of those things that like, I'm pretty much dialed in. Like Sabaa said, I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's a hard thing. But I'm dialed in, and I'm sticking to my content. And if you don't like it, turn it off. No, it's I'm dialed in. So do what you feel. If just do what you feel for your content.
I'd definitely like to see like more Black creatives, artists, stylists, models, and actors being able to tell their stories. I would like to see more Indigenous and Black culture incorporated into media and TV. Our stories deserve to be told, and we deserve to be seen. And I feel like there's been a lot of limitations, and especially in the fashion industry. There's been a lot of times with me where I couldn't go to a certain casting, or I couldn't do certain things because I don't have the classic look. I don't want any limitations for people of color. I want us to be able to just walk in and just be ourselves and be able to have that representation. Black culture is one of the biggest influences in the world, and we don't get enough credit or recognition for it. And so I think we need that representation to show who we are, because it's going to put a stop to all the whole culture appropriation stuff, because we don't get credit for a lot of the things we do. We heavily influence music, clothing, media, slang, hairstyles, products, everything. So I just want to see more representation for Indigenous people and for Black people as well. And then things I don't want to see the token Black models anymore in media or in magazines. And I don't want them using Black people or Black culture for clout, or, using us when it's beneficial for them.
Thanks for these great answers. I wanted to ask this question last because I felt it was a final opportunity to leave our audience with very clear directives on how Black creatives want to be engaged going forward. And I think there was some really interesting overlap in your answers. For example, Natasha and Vanessa, you mentioned wanting to see more Black and BIPOC creatives behind the scenes, not just being called upon to talk about their lived experience. Vanessa and Steve, you mentioned traumatic content and wanting to see less of that, which I fully agree with. Vanessa and Elise, you also mentioned tokenism. And Celia, I thought you made such a great point where we have to use content to drive our personal purchasing decisions. It's a really, we have to say it and do it. That's really, really important. We had a conversation off panel about the place of all Black fashion shows and magazine issues going forward. Nobody would deny the monumental beauty and significance and joy of all Black content, like Valentino Haute Couture, Spring 19, Kim Jones's Spring 2021 Dior Men collection in collaboration with Ghanaian artist Amoko Boafo, as Glenn mentioned. And, but as many of you have said, all Black content is best placed and appreciated amidst content that consistently represents BIPOC. That's where we have to get to.